All right, ladies and gentlemen, just a quick reminder, if you have an indication you'd like to speak tonight, if you have not already signed up, please take the time to do it before we get to that part of the ceremony. So again, if you're planning to speak tonight, make sure you've signed up. All right, with that, good evening. In the back of the room and in the front of the room as well, you'll find American flags. We ask you to join us, please, in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Parker, would you take the roll, please?
Atchison.
Here.
DeMott.
Here.
Haney.
Here.
Menke.
Here.
Seitz.
Here.
Scully.
Here.
Bowles.
Here.
All right, Council, the first item up on is item 3A. This is the minutes of the previous meeting of March the 25th. Gosh, much we're having fun. Ms. Menke, please. Are you making the motion for the meeting? What happens when you leave your light on? You get called on.
I move that the City Council approve the minutes of the regular meeting of March 25th, 2019 as presented.
Mr. DeMott.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Next item up on the agenda is a group of proclamations and presentations we have. And Ms. Menke, if you would please, start with Arbor Day.
Do we have someone from the Colorado State Forest Service here? Oh, nice to meet you. Thank you. Yeah. Why don't you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Well, thank you. Okay. I'm John Kaza. I'm the forester with Westminster. I've been in this position for 10 years or so.
Yes, I'm Donna Davis with the Colorado State Forest Service, and I've been with the Colorado State Forest Service more years than I want to confess. I've worked with some of John's relatives in Southeast Colorado.
Well, it's my pleasure to give this proclamation today. I think that we all agree that trees add so much to our community, not just the beauty of the trees, but what they give to our environment, clean our air, provide shade, help decrease water use. They also provide habitat for birds and animals, and just, I think, overall give us as residents a sense of well-being and a sense of place here in Westminster. So I'll go ahead and read the proclamation. Whereas in 1872, John Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day called Arbor Day be set aside for the planting of trees, and whereas the holiday called Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal, and provide habitat for wildlife, and whereas future generations. Signed this 8th day of April, 2019. want to mention there are many events scheduled this month in honor of Arbor Day, plantings, and celebration, which is combined with Earth Day this year as well. So check those out on our website. I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. It's with a great deal of honor and pleasure that I present on behalf of the Arbor Day Foundation the 34-year little maple leaf is to put on your plaque, and this is to put on your signages throughout the entrances to the community that shows that you have been contributing to your tree forest for 34 years. And this is an honor that is not just something that's a one-time thing. You have to qualify every year. You have to have an ordinance for trees. You have to have an advisory group or a city forestry department. You have to spend $2 per capita, and you have to observe Arbor Day. And I have to first I'll give this to you. Congratulations. And I just wanted to say that I did a little experiment with iTree. I just looked at the 25 trees or so that you have out here and put them into iTree. And that's a program that tries to give some of the values for the ecosystem services that these trees do for us. And I just plugged in a burrow because the city has been donating or giving trees to people at cost to plant. This last year, they gave about 500 trees out. And so out here, I just measured 25 trees. I called them all a burrow, which isn't what they are, but I wanted to see how much value they added to the system. And in a 60-year lifespan, they would contribute by stormwater runoff, protecting 2 million gallons of water, of stormwater runoff over their 60-year period. And they would also do carbon sequestration, like 112,000 pounds of carbon storage that they protect. So I just thought that was kind of cool because John and his group have planted about 500 trees last year with the citizens. And so if you take the 25 and multiply it by 20, that's the kind of continuum that the city of Westminster can be proud of, and the things that they do to make it a wonderful place to live. So just thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for what you guys do. And I did want to get you fired up, Town Council. I thought hopefully you'll want to plant a tree. These are the trees that they worked with the citizens with last year, 2018. There's some really cool ones in there. And of course, we don't want you to plant it unless you plant it correctly. So I brought some things for you so you can distribute those. And it might be short by 1 or 2. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Here.
Thanks, John.
We will take these because you already know how to plant trees, right?
Ms. Scully, if you would, please.
Please have Patty Wright and Congressman May join me up front. Why not, Patty?
I get to run this one.
You're all by yourself. That's a lot of confidence. All right. Well, thank you for joining us up here.
Sure.
Do you want to start out by saying about Earth Day, and then I'll follow up with with extra?
Sure. So my name is Kristen May. I'm our Open Space Stewardship Specialist, and this year for Earth Day, we will be celebrating with the global theme, which is to save endangered species. So we'll be having an Earth Day celebration at City Park. That's in conjunction with John's programming around Arbor Day. You can come. We have various presentations from 11 o'clock to 2 p.m. Zoos coming and bringing live animals. Stanley will be talking about their bald eagle program. It should be a lot of fun, and I know we also have some electric cars that you can test drive.
Oh, very cool. And what day is that?
That is on April 20th. Thank you for reminding me. April
You're
20th,
welcome.
Saturday.
It's Saturday, because Earth Day is actually on April 22nd, but
Yes.
we move it to the Saturday prior or after, depending on which side of the week it's on, just so that all the community can come out and participate in Earth Day. So Earth Day began in 1970, and 20 million people nationwide celebrating festivities of Earth Day. 1 billion people worldwide, which I think is an astounding number. What a great movement. In the past, Westminster has celebrated Earth Day and Arbor Day separately, but this year we've combined them, and so that we can celebrate them all at one time. And this is also promotes our movement in Westminster, our value of environment, and doing recycling and having a clean environment and having a beautiful and vibrant community. So this is our work toward that. So thank you very much for coming up today.
Of course.
And I'm going to read this proclamation. Okay. Whereas Earth Day is an important day for environmentally conscious citizens all over the world, and whereas the City of Westminster has proven itself to be dedicated to environmental responsibility and sustainability, and whereas Westminster has planned and organized a celebration to bring information, insight, and advice to participants, as the caring citizens of our community are willing to do their part to learn about the various programs available to them, now, therefore, I, Herb Atchison, Mayor of the City of Westminster, on behalf of the entire City Council and staff, do hereby proclaim April 20th, 2019 as Westminster Earth Day celebration in the City of Westminster, and call upon all citizens and civic organizations to join together to learn, participate, and celebrate the efforts being made by the residents of the city. Signed the 8th day of April, 2019, Herb Atchison.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing with us today. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We have to take a picture. Sorry. Thank you.
For DeMott, if you would, please.
Would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us what you're here for?
My name is Saya Nelson. I work for Home Watch Caregivers in Arvada, and we currently facilitate the Parkinson's Support Group in Arvada and in Westminster. And we just accepted the proclamation from Arvada 2 weeks ago and are honored to do the same here. So we partner with a lot of the groups. There's a lot of programs through City Park and through all the rec centers in Arvada and Westminster, pedaling for Parkinson's, a lot of balance and exercise classes that really can only help bring awareness to a population that really doesn't get a lot of awareness that it needs. So thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you for being here and thank you for your work. So I'm going to go ahead and read this proclamation. Whereas Parkinson's disease is a chronic progressive neurological disease and is the second most common neurodegenerative disease in the United States. Whereas Parkinson's disease is estimated to affect approximately 1 million people in the United States, and the prevalence will be more than doubled by 2040. And whereas Parkinson's disease is the 14th leading cause of death in the United States according to the Centers for Disease Control Prevention, and whereas it is estimated the economic burden of Parkinson's disease is at $14.4 billion annually, including indirect costs to patients and family members of $6.3 billion. And whereas research suggests that the cause of Parkinson's disease is a combine of genetic and environmental factors, but the exact cause of progression of the disease is still unknown. Whereas there is no objective test or biomarker of Parkinson's disease, and there is no cure or drug to slow the halt the progression of the disease. And whereas symptoms of Parkinson's disease vary from person to person and can occur in tremors, slowness of movements, rigidity, gait and balance difficulty, speech, swallowing disturbances, cognitive impairment, and dementia, mood disorders, and a variety of other non-motor symptoms. And whereas volunteers, researchers, caregivers, and medical professionals are working to improve the quality of life of persons living with Parkinson's disease and their families, whereas increased research, education, community support, services such as those provided by Parkinson's Foundation and other organizations are needed to find more effective treatments to provide access to quality care to those living with the disease today. Now, therefore, I, Herb Atchison, Mayor of the City of Westminster, on behalf of the entire City Council and staff, do hereby proclaim April 2019 as Parkinson's Disease Awareness Month, and call upon the people of Westminster to talk about Parkinson's with family members and community to raise awareness of the disease. Signed this day, 8th of April 2019. Thank you very much, and thank you for the work you do on behalf of those with Parkinson's.
Thank you.
Shy group.
This proclamation has to do with National Public Safety Telecommunications. George? This group is something that didn't watch the like off the table for many years to do this. What they go through mentally on a day-to-day basis for every schedule that they work, things that they have to deal with, insurmountable. How many of them still do it? I haven't had work with Ellen, part of the group that we have here with us tonight, and our new manager. We're very proud of this group and what they do for public safety. Without them, without the work they do, our officers, our firefighters, our first responders of any kind may not reach the job in the time that we need them. Because of the work that they do and the things that they handle, the shootings, moms having babies, strokes or heart attacks, medical issues of any kind, they're there every day, 24/7. That's a great thing to happen here tonight. Chief, would you introduce the group you got with you?
I'll introduce Kim, and we'll work our way down the line. This is Kim Barron. She's our deputy chief in charge of the division in which our
Karen Sweet, she's our new communications administrator.
This is Jared, one of our senior dispatchers. I'm Angie, I'm a dispatcher.
I'm Marina. Emily Peak, one of the dispatch supervisors.
Amy, Bree.
These are the guys that protect you every day. Tonight we're proud to recognize them for the work that they do. Whereas each day thousands of Americans dial 911 for help in emergencies, men and women who answer these calls for help, gathering essential information, dispatching appropriate assistance, and often make the difference between life and death for persons in need. Westminster Public Safety Dispatchers are among the more than 200,000 telecommunications specialists who work daily to protect and promote public safety. Whereas public safety telecommunicators are more than a calm and a reassuring voice at the other end of the phone. They are knowledgeable and highly trained individuals who not only work closely with the police and fire departments, but numerous other state and local agencies, as well as our streets, parks, and utilities division. Because emergency can strike at any time, we rely on the vigilance and preparedness of these individuals 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Yes, we do 366 on leisure. They don't get a day. Whereas public safety communications are the first essential contact citizens have with emergency services, making them the vital link between the public and first responders. Whereas the City of Westminster recognizes the need to maintain the highest standards of public safety, we owe a great debt to the men and women who, by applying their expertise in telecommunications, help to make that achievement possible. During this special observance, we acknowledge the debt and extend a heartfelt thanks to each of them. Now, therefore, I hereby ask the Mayor of the City of Westminster on behalf of the entire City Council and staff to hereby proclaim the week of April 14th through the 20th, 2019 as National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. Call upon the people of Westminster to join in honoring the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep our city and its citizens safe. Signed this 8th day of April 2019. Would you hold this for the group? Would you like to ask something? If not, would you do it anyway?
I don't know how I could top that. Thank you.
Well, mine's all written out.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Gentlemen, these are your dispatches.
And then the rest of you come right in front. Over here.
That was the plan.
Thank you. Well done.
The next item on our agenda is the citizen communications. This is a period of time that we open up the microphone for people to come forward for any item that they wish, unless you are here for a public hearing, which is scheduled later on in the agenda. If you're here for that item, we ask you to wait till that one comes up. There will be public comment at that time. Reminder, you're each allowed up to 5 minutes. The green light comes on when your time starts, the yellow one when you have 1 minute left, and the red one when your time is up. Again, we allow up to 5 minutes, so kind of be cautious of the people who are here in front of you. I will call you up. If you have not signed up, please try to do that. We'll continue to collect the sign-up sheets as the meeting goes on, but we will try to make sure we get through everybody, and we'll keep doing it until we've had a chance for everybody that wants to talk. Mr. Jeremy Rodriguez.
Good morning, Mayor, members of council, staff. My name is Jeremy Rodriguez. I'm here on behalf of Congressman Ed Perlmutter, and I wanted to give you guys a brief update of a few things that are happening this week in the committees that the Congressman is serving on and on the floor as well. Those issues that are being debated this week revolve around environmental issues, water pollution mitigation, disaster response, immigration issues, workforce re-entry programs, IRS issues, net neutrality, and budget caps. Those are a few things, and if anybody would like to chat more about what's happening, I'd be happy to answer those questions along with my colleagues in the office. We can pretty easily reach either by phone or email or coming into our office. Another issue I just wanted to bring up is that's coming up is the census that's coming up in 2020 and how important participation is. There are a number of issues in the state of Colorado that participation in the census affects. Those issues or services that participation provides is Medicare, Medicaid, community centers, programs for veterans, community colleges, tuition assistance, public assistance, Title I grants, and road improvements. This is all tied into each person's participation in the census. That represents for each person is $2,300 per person over the each year for over that decade. So that represents about $13 billion of revenue that comes in to the state of Colorado from the federal government. Without participation, that money does not come to the state of Colorado, and those programs are affected. We'd love to chat more with constituents and anybody else who would like to know more about how important the census in 2020 is. That is all I have for today. I just wanted to mention that we do have a Government in the Grocery coming up on April 23rd in Golden. We will be having another one in May. If people can look at our website and just look at our events page, we will be putting those up as we finalize those events. And with that, that's all I have. Thank you very much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, as I call you up, I will ask you just to give us your name. If you're already signed up and I have your information, this just so that we can recognize on the recording who's speaking. Otherwise, just take your time. All right, Britt Terry.
Can I ask that the clerk distribute these? Sorry, wrong end. Good evening, folks. I'd like to come back and report to you on some activities that have happened in the last short couple of weeks. We were just here 2 weeks ago talking about the Stanley Lake issue with the boating closure. We quickly, as a boating community, pulled together a group that we call the Friends of Stanley Lake. We're pretty well represented here tonight. You can probably guess what color we wear normally. We started a lot of conversations and collaboration amongst this group. We listened very closely to what was said by the city manager in terms of why he made the decisions that he made. And, you know, it was very clear to us that what the city manager really wanted to hear from us is solutions that reduced his risk to a point where he felt he could put boats back on the lake. That set of solutions is encapsulated in this quick report that we put together. I think you guys, if you give it a quick read, you'll be pretty impressed. You put 500 or 600 people together and let them collaborate across the electronic communications that we have today. It's amazing what you can do in 1 week's time. So in here, we've got a lot of solutions that we think should be used in the decision-making process to get the lake back open. We've really appreciated the city's openness to assembling a task force. That was disseminated last week at our meeting. We're hoping that we can move more to a meeting that's a little more open and collaborative with the city. What we've done as a boating community is put together a nomination and election process, which is in process right now. Nominations are accepted till the end of tonight, and our voting happens for 1 more week after that. When we are done, we will give you 5 representatives from the boating community who can speak in one voice for us. All right? The intention is that we can roll up our sleeves and work together to try and make solutions for the good of Stanley Lake. All the people who can enjoy that valuable resource that we have there. We think this is a lot more effective way than actually just having 100 people come to a mic and spend 2 minutes, right? That's not a very good way to solve problems, not in a way that actually makes them stick when we're done. So with that, we've done what we think is our part of living up to the challenge that was put in front of us by the city manager, and we really want to be part of the solution, not just the brunt end of the decision that was made by a solution by just a very limited handful of people. We're pretty unified. We're going to stay unified. I don't wear this yellow shirt all day, but I wear it on some days, and I'll wear it proudly every single time we have to put it on. We'll continue to do this, and we're going to continue to operate it in good faith as a boating community. I think you're going to hear that we're pretty loud, we're pretty excited about some ideas that we've got, and we really like those ideas to be heard. So, you know, I'm hoping that we can take this opportunity with the task force to work together with the city, and we can maybe remove some of the damage that was done with the lack of transparency of the decision and how the decision was disseminated to not only the city council, but to the boating community in general. So we're hoping that we can build on those moments and really do what we can to eliminate all the risks that are put forth and figure out a way to safely get back on that lake with no mussels. That's it for my time.
Thank you, sir. Barry, I know a butcher this before. So Barry Ozolina? Ozolina, okay.
Pronounced it the same last time.
You don't learn sometimes.
You're consistent. My name is Barry Ozolina. I've been a Westminster resident for 32 years now. 27 summers I've enjoyed on Stanley Lake. I've actually thought that I was going to retire here in Westminster, and I still hope to. But this decision has rocked my world, so to speak. If ever there was a time to revisit the decision that was made, it's now. Most of our boats are still in shrink wrap. As we heard from the meeting on last week, I guess, that the lake is mussel-free as of today. So if indeed our boats are shrink wrapped and they haven't been in the water for, 6 months, 7 months now, then the time is now to get that one boat, one lake situation started. Anyway, that's my 2 cents worth. That's all I got.
Hold on, Rick.
Thank you for giving me a chance to speak this evening. I think you're going to sense a common theme coming. I appreciate the city hosting the community meeting last Tuesday. At that meeting, specifically, Mr. Tripp said that the only issue was protecting the lake from a mussel infestation, and that he would get boats back on Stanley Lake if it was safe. So I have one simple question. What are we waiting for? We don't have to cure cancer on day one. Let's take one step at a time. Open it immediately to people willing to keep their boats on site. This exact recommendation is on page 12 of the city's own report. There is no safer plan. Our boats have been out of the water for 6 to 8 months, as the last gentleman said. I'm happy to take my boat to the Parks Department tomorrow for decontamination, and then you can further quarantine it on site if you want. Any single one of these is scientifically recognized as safe. Do all 3 if you must. You can have a lottery tomorrow for everyone who purchased a 2019 pass. Give everyone a week to accept that or move to the next person on the list. Lock the boats in the yard at sunset. All boats must check out with a ranger and check back in to take the boats off site for 2 hours max for gas or a quick wash. Allow mechanics to come on site for service. Done. It doesn't need to be complicated. It doesn't need a task force. Don't get me wrong. I'm not in love with this plan. It will leave many of us in the community out. However, we can take baby steps and get there slowly, step by step, and keep improving. I'm thankful that the city has established a task force. I do look forward to their conclusions on how to restore full boating on Stanley Lake, and I hope they do this expeditiously in time to let all of us on this summer. But I think we should let them do their job, and they can define the future steps, and they can decide or determine the timing of those future steps. But let's just please take the first step. This plan for one boat, one lake has no holes. Please recognize this is not just 500 boats. I know more than 20 people who would step foot on my boat this summer. That is more than 10,000 people that have been impacted by this decision. Many of us are still in limbo trying to decide what to do this summer. We have no idea whether to plan one way or another. I don't know how long we're asked to stay in limbo. We deserve clarity on this season, and if the answer is no boats, I feel we deserve an explicit explanation as to why the city's own recommendation is not 100% safe and easy to implement. So again, why are we waiting? Please commit to taking this first step and show us that you are serious. Couple of asides, minor things after that. I would also like to, reiterate that many of these 10,000 people that are impacted vote in the city of Westminster and are not fully accepting of the fact that the city council has no influence or can't make an impact in this matter. I've also heard that the 24 people who violated the rules last year received a 1-year ban. I don't know if that's true, but if it is, it's a little insulting because the rest of us at this point are not going to see the lake for 1 year. Yes, My statement was, I was going to say, I would argue that the single most effective tool the city has to protect the lake and the water supply is to make the time and financial penalties so severe that no one would even blink or think about trying to cheat. Okay, so it's, and maybe I have my facts wrong, I don't know, but if that's true, I think that's just doesn't make any sense and it's ridiculous. Thank you for your time tonight. Please give this a small fraction of your time this week to make a big difference in the lives of many, many of your constituents. Thank you.
All right, you're going to have to help me. I have what looks like J-O-L as a first name. Or John? Okay. Sorry, John, I couldn't read your writing.
John Petraglia from Westminster, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. Being a boat owner and listening to the meetings that's gone on, one of the things I don't think was fair is the meeting at the public parks last week really should have been held prior to the decision to close the lake. Being that it's a knee-jerk reaction, in my opinion, I totally respect the concern for the water system, and I understand that, but if the meeting was held prior and had input from the community, I think that would have gone a long way. Instead, now we're backpedaling to try to save the 2019 boat season, and there's been a report put in front of you that have many, many logical solutions. There is no one way to do this, but there are many ways to put layers in place that will protect the lake, protect the boating community. To say your system hasn't been working, has failed, is not correct because there are no mussels on the lake, so something has been working. Unfortunately, you know, when there's a will, there's a way. 24 people found a way to violate the system and, you know, change the system so that they can take it upon themselves to go boating elsewhere. And to spin off of what the gentleman said, a one-year ban is insulting because basically all the boaters this year are in the same boat. It's like we committed the crime as well, and we're being banned. So those people that violated should have a lifetime ban. They shouldn't be allowed on the boat. And I hope that they are prosecuted as fully as they can fine-wise by the state, the city, and the Parks Department for what they did. Amazingly, in this report, the boating community has come together and has done more research and put together more solutions in 1 week than anybody, than the city has, which to me, I think it's a testament to how everybody feels about this situation and how passionate they are. As the gentleman said prior, it's not just the people that are boating, it's the family, the friends that go on the boat, that enjoy the lake and get the opportunity to have a nice relaxing night, nice relaxing day with the family and their friends. The impact of the loss of boating doesn't only hurt the boaters, but what about the businesses in the area? The gas stations that we get gas from, the store that we go get our groceries so that we can picnic and barbecue, the restaurants that we go to when we're done boating and we want to take the family or friends out to dinner. It's a major impact on the entire community. The loss of that alone is, you know, a lot. Again, punishing for everyone for the 24 violators is not fair. You know, this is 2019. Technology is incredible. The report shows many, many ways that we can use technology, several different ways to protect the lake, protect the integrity of the boating community, where pretty much not one thing is a solution, but a multitude of things will very easily be put in place. You know, the one boat, one lake, maybe for this year to open up 2019, save the community, save some revenue, is a great start. Boats have been sitting in that yard. My boat stays there all year. I went through there yesterday. I counted over 190 boats shrunk wrapped with tags. No threat. No reason why you can't lock the gate at night. Take the combination lock off. You don't need a combination lock to lock the gate during the boating season. Padlock the boat. There's no reason why, padlock the gate. There's no reason why anyone, once sunset and the boats are off, needs to take their boat out at night. All right, you need to go get gas, you need to get mechanical. It's all in there. Give a 2 to 3 hour pass. You're not going anywhere, not going to go boating on another lake and come back in 2 to 3 hours, put your boat back. You have security there. There's many ways you can get this boating season started now and then build on it. And you have literally 10 months to come up with a solution for 2020 to have other people come in to safeguard. But right now, there's quite a few ways to continue this, season without hurting and damaging the community, losing revenue to the parks, working together. I can't see how we can't come up with a solution to save 2019 and then take steps forward and reevaluate every year what's right, what's wrong. But from what I understand, this system's been in place and hasn't been looked at for 10 years, and somebody needs to take responsibility for that as well, because this should be evaluated on a yearly basis. And I think there's a lot that can be done here, and I hope somebody steps forward and decisions are made to save the boating community, save the businesses in the area, and save the impact that's going to be here. It's going to hurt everybody. The parks, it's going to hurt everybody. Thank you for your time.
Marcia Hooker.
My name is Marcia Hooker, and my husband and I have lived in our home, our family home, for over 30 years. I would ask the mayor and the council to understand how significantly we will be affected by the water treatment facility that is proposed to replace our community open space at 108th and 106th. This open space has significant historical value, along with being a habitat for wildlife. We love our way of life and chose this neighborhood and its rural setting for these reasons. I would like to also address how this will greatly affect our streets because of the increased traffic. Our infrastructure is not suitable for this. This is a rural community of which, we walk our dogs, we have horses up and down the street. Our children need to be safe out on the roadway. And if this happens, it will affect it greatly. I would also like a comprehensive drainage and water flow plan to be discussed, because we already have a lot of problems with this as far as flooding in the area. And we want to preserve the Walnut Creek as much as possible. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Pam Lovato.
Pam Lovato. You can see how passionate I am about boating. Took a little bit to get here. But, my husband and I have lived in Westbrook. We are 5 minutes door to door from our house to the lake. And we love boating. And we really would just like you, Mr. Tripp, to open your mind and listen to the suggestions that are given to you. And I think that we can fix this so that everyone can enjoy our lake. It's fantastic. We just need your help, please. We're begging. Let's not destroy the whole season. We are voters. There are lots of us. Just have to remember that. Thank you.
Steve Boss.
Thank you, City Council. Appreciate the opportunity to speak. My name is Steve Boss. I'm a Westminster resident, a homeowner, taxpayer. I also work in the City of Westminster at St. Anthony's North Hospital. Westminster is a great city. The tree city. When we went to buy our house, it was between Broomfield, Shaw Heights, and City of Westminster near Stanley Lake, and between the green belts, the parks, and the lake, Westminster was the winning option. And I'm really devastated by this. The 30 years I've lived here, I've been boating most every year except for when we were remodeling the house. in the brochure, I mean, the problem, how this came to this country originally was ballast water from the freighters in the Great Lakes and how it spread and so forth. And the ski boats have the ballast tanks, but in your brochures there, the group there's ballast filters that can take care of that. I think that the way this all came down, it feels like very exclusive, and Westminster is a very inclusive and progressive town. And on that note, I mean, they started the ANS program. I mean, they were far ahead of the state of Colorado on this. And I think we can continue to be a leader by looking at these solutions. I mean, there's not one solution that's going to fit. The cheaters are going to cheat, but there's, if we layer the solutions, you have to have a ballast pump. If you have to have, basically like an ankle bracelet that's GPS, and if you have to have, decontamination yearly, despite the fact that your boat's on the lake. And in fact, my boat is in the parking lot on the lake with the tag from last year because the quarantines are too long to go anywhere else. And why would I go anywhere else? I mean, the lake is just, 9 minutes from my house. So I asked council members to please look at the book. There's lots of solutions in there. And not one thing is the answer. I think multi-layered approach just to keep their cheaters from cheating, because basically the honest people have been penalized by this, and it's devastating. Working at the hospital, like your 911 operators, you got to take self-care, and boating is my self-care. And yeah, I see a lot of bad stuff in the ER, but man, boating gets me back on track. And personally, I find this just devastating. And I thank you for your consideration. I'm very pleased that you all are listening. And please review the books and let's do fact-based, because the thing is, I thought plutonium was the biggest risk to this reservoir. I mean, really. And in fact, it probably still is to some extent. But Westminster being a leader, I mean, the way they test the water stuff, I mean, I feel safe because Westminster is a great city, and we are, you guys need to be the leaders. We need to, because this is against the Colorado ideal. I mean, Colorado's about outdoor sports and inclusivity, and this is being exclusive. This is being anti-outdoors. This is contrary to Colorado values. It's contrary to Westminster values. It's just nonsense. I mean, but the truth is, all of us here do not want zebra mussels, because it is devastating to the ecosystem. We're going to incur more costs. Our water bills will go up. Nobody likes increased water bills. Nobody likes increased taxes. I mean, we all do not want zebra mussels, but all of these solutions would be, the cost would be borne by us, the boaters. We don't expect the city to have all these layers of security and increase expenses. I mean, these costs will be borne by the boaters, which is one thing to consider also. Like I say, thank you for letting me speak. And really, Westminster is a great city. Tree City, USA, the parks, recreation, just second to none. I mean, I wouldn't live anywhere else. Thank you.
Mike Lear. Oh, Mike Lear, L-E-H-R.
Oh, I'm sorry. No problem. It's close. Thank you, Mayor, City Council members. I'm here to talk about the water treatment, the Water 2025 issue. I live off 106th in Old Wadsworth, and the neighborhood that I live in is one of the final two sites that the city's narrowed down to select for the water treatment plant. So I'm here. I know the city hasn't selected a site yet, but the site that off 108th and what is it, Cross Street, just off 108th, I guess. That's an open space, and we understand the city has a deed trust with the county that when that land was deeded between the county and the city from the original owner, that was to remain open space. And
I know in talking with the original owner, that was her intention all along. So the site that, one of the last two sites is that open space. So we're concerned as neighbors that that'll take up our open space. The other concern we have, or myriad of concerns, but another concern we have is the other site that's in the final two is a site that, according to your comprehensive plan, which is just south of the Butterfly Pavilion, is a site that the city calls a focus area for high-end retail. It's right along I-36, the Boulder Turnpike. So it's high-end retail, hotels. And so from our perspective, we see these two sites. We were wondering why that other site was even selected, because it wouldn't, based on your comprehensive plan, it appears that that site would not be selected because it would be out of compliance with your plan. So that defaults to our site. And the issue we have is pretty much everybody that lives out there is our county residents. I'm a county resident. I'm not a city resident. So we're potentially going to have this forced on us, but we don't have city representation. We don't vote for you guys. We don't really have a say in the city because we're county members. So we, as an example, we understand that there was a community working group that was set up to help the city planners evaluate different sites that could be used. There was nobody from our neighborhood even notified of this, or even notified of the water treatment facility. We understand that there were meetings held last summer, last fall, that the city had with city citizens, but none of us were aware of that, invited, and granted, you may say you can go on the website and get that information, but we're not in the city, so we don't particularly look at that type of information. So we feel that we're potentially going to have this forced on us. And what I'd like to bring to this is at least our concerns to the council that we don't think this process was fair. I mean, had we had somebody on the community working group or at least attended some of the meetings, we could have provided input then. We understand that the decision is going to be made in the next few weeks. We know that the city's going to have an input meeting next week, and I believe it's because we've raised some issues about not us having input, but that's, again, kind of after the fact. To get it down to two sites without any of our input, we don't feel we were treated properly, and we don't have the representation. So we would really like the city to go back and reconsider some of the other sites. I'm sure there's some other viable sites that wouldn't take up open space. We don't understand all the criteria that was used to select these two sites. We'd like to understand that. Again, why this other site that we're up against is a prime site for the city. It wouldn't make sense to put a water treatment facility on that site, and it's even in your plan. So it's de facto, from our view, it looks like it's de facto that the site of the open space where we're at has been selected, even though you guys haven't announced it, de facto, but we have not had any input. Again, we feel like we've been left out of this whole process. So I just wanted to raise that as an issue. I know that the selection hasn't been made, and I know the council members can't really do anything until that's made, but we want to make you aware of the issue. We'll probably keep coming back to you guys because there's a lot of passion around this from all the neighbors. So I just wanted to speak up just to make you guys aware of where we're at with that.
Thank you, Mr. Lamb.
Thank you.
Jared Jansen.
Good evening. It's kind of becoming a routine here. This is about Stanley Lake, and I don't want to regurgitate anything that was brought up before. I don't want to talk about the emotional aspect of it, although that still remains true. But I do want to say I thank Mr. Tripp for our meeting that we had last week. I kind of went into it thinking, man, there's something else going on, and I walked away thinking that you actually are open to ideas, and that makes me feel good, okay? That being said, I mean, I really do want a solution as well, and I'm actually pro 35-day quarantine. I live probably the closest to the boat ramp other than anybody that leaves their boat at the lake. And I double tag my boat every time I pull it out of the water, just because I'm afraid of it falling off. So that doesn't bother me. If there is a one lake rule, I'd be for that. I'd even leave my boat there, and there's an overflow lot that you can use there to fit more than just the boats that are in the current storage lot. So I'd love for that to be taken into consideration. There's a couple other ideas as well, and I was working on one such as an electronic leash, and I have a developer working on it right now, and if it's viable, I'm going to pay to fund it. And in my research, I called and spoke to the director of Colorado Parks and Wildlife today. She's over invasive species prevention. And it was kind of concerning because I found out that there's a 10-state software that's completely integrated right now with every boat that goes on every lake that is state-run with a state ranger. And that this is a completely free system that has been offered to Stanley Lake, and Stanley has turned it down. Okay? So I further found out that and she said specifically, this is Catherine Brown, she said specifically it was offered up at Stanley Lakes to do their own thing. So I wanted to go on public record and say she was able to tell me right off the bat the exact 24 lakes, or the lakes that these 24 boaters went to. And she said, without a shadow of a doubt, if this had been used by Stanley Lake last year, Stanley would have known at the time these 24 people showed up at the lake and not allowed them on the body of water. So there's a system in place that would have worked. This is the same database that Stanley scrubbed your boaters' data against. We already have a system out there. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. If we just would have used what's free that integrates into this system, and they cover 10 states. They cover Lake Powell, Lake Mead, who the doctor that Mr. Tripp brought to our meeting said is the most dangerous of the lakes in this region. That's all lakes that they monitor in the system. So there's a lot we can do, but let's use what's right in front of us that's free, that our tax dollars are paying for anyways. So that's all I had. I appreciate your time.
Mr. Catapurin? Ms. Catapurin, sorry.
Hi, my name is Taj Catapuram. I'm actually a physician who lives in the area, but I'm not here to talk about medicine today. I do that, advocate all the time at the Capitol and at the federal level in DC for my patients. Today, I'm actually here to advocate for the boating community. I am not personally an avid boater. I was introduced to it by my husband, and he's the one who's the avid boater, and I support him. He's been on Stanley Lake for decades, and as someone who is a strong advocate in the medical community, the things that I advocate for the most are fairness and access, and I felt the decision to close the lake was unfair. Unfortunately, I was out of town for the last couple of weeks, so I couldn't attend these meetings, but I read through the minutes, and I was able to hear what my husband had to say about what happened, and bringing the medical aspect into it, as another gentleman had already discussed. Patient mental health is something I discuss very often with all of my patients. I'm in the cancer realm. And I understand from the meetings that there are people who bring people out on the lake who have suffered domestic violence, abuse, etc., teach them how to water ski, etc. And it's a volunteer service. It's a huge service to the community. And as another gentleman already mentioned, there's more than a loss to the boating community. There's loss to the people who benefit from the generosity that we can provide. So my sincere hope is that you do read through all those ideas and that we all work together to try and figure out what's fair. Thank you.
Mr. Lydicki, this now is your turn.
I too will be brief and try not to go back over anything you've heard on Stanley Lake. But the one thing I think that has not been brought up is the family aspect of Stanley Lake. There's no drinking on Stanley Lake. We've been to other lakes, and there's a bunch of crazy people, drunk kids sometimes, and they're driving carelessly. You don't see that at Stanley. It's great for families. We have four kids ourselves who are grown and married, and then now we have the grandkids. We love taking them on the lake. We're going to hate to see that go away. It's a safe place, and please bring it back. Thank you.
Thanks. Mr. Franks.
Afternoon. Thank you for letting me speak. Well, we've talked about family, we've talked about muscles, we've talked about personal endeavors about the lake that have come along. I have a lot of personal feelings about the lake and boating. My uncle had a boat shop on Federal called Blaine's Marine for years. It supported his family and my family. My dad was a boat mechanic. Then we decided to start going away from Stanley and trying out at a private lake called Empire. We did that for many years. We'd probably still be there. My brother-in-law was diagnosed with brain cancer. He lives across the street from Stanley Lake, and that's what brought us back to Stanley Lake. He couldn't make the trips to Empire anymore. He loves skiing. He's the one who motivated me to get my butt up on one ski when I was younger. The bench at the top of the dock is dedicated to him. His name is Kevin Bobka. And the saying on the bench says it don't get no better than this, but actually improper English was it don't get no better than this. Sitting on that bench after a long day of skiing, looking back at the sun going down, putting our boat away, washing her down, going to our camper, those were the best days of our lives. And they're his kids and my kids and now my grandchildren. When my grandson found out about them closing Stanley Lake, the first thing he said is, "They're taking away my childhood, Grandpa." It hit hard. He's 14 years old now. He's been tricked into wakeboarding when he was 3. So I just want you all to take a good hard look at that book and try to work with us. We're here to help. We don't want muscles. We want to take care of water quality. We want to help take care of the trash we pick up on the beaches when we're down. When I sit on the bench and say a prayer, I pull the weeds around the bench. I don't think you're going to get a better community who really cares about that park as much as the boaters do. Thank you.
Mr. Fernandez.
Mayor, City Council, Mr. Tripp, there's been a lot of motion tonight, and I think we've seen enough of that. We've offered a lot of solutions. The one thing I remember from Tuesday night was they're putting a boating task force together. I know one group has come in and said they're going to supply the 5 members. I think there was told there would be 5 members. I'm not sure what the selection process is involved. I am on, and I appreciate all the work you guys have done, friends of Stanley, but I want to make sure that's an open selection. And I'm not sure how that works. It wasn't real clear. 1972 is when I first moved to Westminster, 13. Okay, and 78 was the first time I went on that lake. And we're still there, so that's all I'll say. Thanks.
Mr. Work.
Hello, Kevin Work. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight and your guys' willingness to hopefully continue this open back and forth conversation, this dialogue. I want to thank the community members, or city council members, excuse me, that showed up to that meeting on Tuesday. I really do appreciate it. Mr. Mayor, thank you for coming. Saw you there. I hope you take what we presented tonight seriously. I believe we introduced some easy, logical solutions that maybe you guys have or haven't considered, but so we also implemented some redundancy so you guys can help keep it 100% effective. Again, it's been 100% effective for 12 years. We've been a few loopholes, and with a little bit of updating, we can close those loopholes and keep it 100% effective. City has this amazing resource. Hundreds of boats and tens of thousands of people enjoy every year. It's very rare. The cities don't, not every city has a lake that people can enjoy like this. It'd be a shame to have the city just walk away from this valuable resource. It brings a lot of joy. The quality of life for the city really goes up. Brings a lot of people in. Go over my notes here. Yeah, I believe the boating community behind me, we're all pretty shocked to find out that the state of Colorado has an A&S system, and it's taught nationally. Other states come here to get taught this decontamination system. It's called WID, Watercraft Inspection Decon. And they teach it to all 10 other states and any other state that wants to do it. And Stanley Lake chose to opt out of this. They're the only lake that doesn't implement this system. And it's also been very effective. So maybe something to look at to help close these loopholes. I believe the 35-day quarantine is a big reason why people were trying to circumvent the system. It's very rare that it's a 35-day quarantine. Especially in Colorado, you can go to Lake Powell and go to Chatfield the next day if you pass their decon, which is very hard to do. Not every boat passes, but that's why it's implemented. The state really pushes this clean, drain, dry that you don't see anywhere in Stanley Lake that really helps the boating community keep the lakes clean. And it's called a zero drip test. If your boat has any water, 1 drip of water, you don't get on. You got to do the full decon, and that's where 35 days may come in. So I believe if we can just look for more reasonable, I'm already talking like the lake's reopen. If we're talking about a more reasonable 35 quarantine that the rest of the state or even nation uses, no one wants to cheat. No one, those boaters, sorry I'm jumping around here, but when you talk to the state on those tagging systems, every tag that the 24 boaters that everyone talks about, you can look at those tags and they know they were tampered with. Again, Stanley Lake, maybe not proper training. You can look at those tags and instantly see that tag was tampered. Those boats couldn't have not went on. Whether you're using an electronic system or not, simple tag. Because I tried to expose the state that maybe they have a defect in their, we call the nut system. And they're aware of it. They also know exactly how to tell if it was tampered with. That's why they believe these nuts are 100% effective. It has not been proven that one could be tampered with without sign. So again, I hope you guys just take this and take it seriously, and I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts as you guys become more educated on the solutions we presented to you, and hope you guys feel more safe, that we can keep this lake as safe as it is now, and boating can continue. And there's a way that everybody can win here. Thank you.
Mr. Escobar.
Hello, my name is Kathy Escobar, and I am a resident of Arvada on Stanley Lake for 15 years, raised 5 children there. They are all now in other states. If they were here today, they would be here to speak. They're young adults, and Stanley Lake has been very formative for them. I also co-lead a faith community, a mission center, and Christian community in Broomfield. It's right on the border of Westminster. So day after day, we serve Westminster residents who are on the margins, and all summer long, we take countless numbers of people out on water heels for water sports empowerment for the soul. Many, I was doing the list for 2018, over 50 Westminster residents, single moms, foster kids, domestic violence victims, people who live on the margins. It's been said, but I want to remind everybody just again how special Stanley Lake is. Access is everything. I really appreciate the doctor who shared fairness and access. And all of the things that have been presented, we are firm supporters and friends of Stanley Lake. I think this has exhibited the best in community engagement. We all know that had that meeting happened before the decision had been made and the problem had been brought on the table, that a solution would be here. The report that they brought today is phenomenal. It offers true solutions. But I just want to address the reason why I came today. I know that you all, city councilmen, did not make the decision. The decision came from Mr. Tripp and his organization and the people that did tons of research to come to that decision. But your role is as civic leaders holding the citizens of this community with integrity and with leadership. That's your role. And the undercurrent that I just wanted to address here tonight, and I think it's kind of been said, but I want to say it directly. We have all lost faith in government. This last season of really our political system has been at its worst, but I would say it's been happening for a long time. People want to believe that really these solutions are going to be talked about and proposed, and it's really an option. That it's not just lip service. It's not just, we're just going to go through the motions and kind of pretend like we really listened to everybody, but ultimately we made our decision. It's not fair. These are wise, amazing, committed, dedicated people who love this community. And we want to believe that this is an open and transparent and possible solution. And that some of our trust can be put back into place. There was a huge violation. We all know that. And you can make it right. You can make this right. And you can make it right fast. The proposal that was presented, the ability of this community to rise up and say, we are with you, government. We want to keep this lake open because it's the right thing to do. Clean water, safe for everybody. It has an advantage and a special thing that I personally believe will be really helpful and healing to the wider community. I agree too that people are watching. They're watching this. They know the violation. My friends that I serve on the margin are just like, just another example. People just make these decisions. They don't think about anything. That's kind of like what we're left with. And this is a chance to hear the voices, to listen to the voices, and know that they're not just ranting and raving about we lost our lake. They're dedicated community citizens, leaders, moms, dads, school, kids in school, the whole range of people who are willing to say, we are here and help us restore our faith in government, that the process could actually work and a wrong could be corrected. My hope in my heart is you just do the right thing. Let's do this. We can do this. And the world is watching. I want them to have a healing story. A story that we're like, oh my gosh, that really worked. Because it can and it should. Thank you for listening.
All right, that runs the gamut of those who had signed up prior to this meeting or by the time I got the two sheets. Is there anyone who has comments they'd still like to come forward with? Come on down, sir. Since you didn't sign up, I will need your name and address for the record, please.
Thank you. My name is Dan Henderson. I live at 10497 Ammons Street, Broomfield, Colorado. I'm here to talk about the Water 2025 project. Mike Lair was up here speaking about the process that the city has used to, they originally started with 50 sites and they narrowed it down to 9 sites, I believe, and then to the 2 sites that remain. We had zero involvement in that whole process. In fact, we didn't find out, our neighborhood did not find out until about 4 weeks ago that we were likely getting a water treatment facility on our open space in the middle of our neighborhood. So obviously we've been having meetings with all of our neighbors, and we have some great neighbors, and we've got a great neighborhood. It's all acre plus lots. Most people have lived out there for 10, 20, 30, 40. I've been out there 59 years. It's just a real special place. A lot of it's unincorporated Jefferson County. There's some Westminster in there now. They've annexed some parts of it. And it's just a great place to raise kids. It is rural. The streets are only 20-something feet wide. They're only wide enough for barely to get 2 cars by each other. There's no sidewalks. There's no walking trails. When people want to ride their bikes, they ride them in the road. They want to ride a horse, they ride it in the road. You want to walk your dog, you walk it down the road. We just don't have the infrastructure out there to support some of the major changes that are being proposed for our neighborhood. This is just one of them. And I would also ask this, how many water treatment facilities should one neighborhood have to have? Because we already have one. We have one at 104th and Wadsworth. I think it's really asking too much of a neighborhood to have 2 water treatment facilities, one in the center of it and one on the southwest corner. I think that's too much to put on one neighborhood, I really do. We're concerned about the process, like Mike Lair said when he was up here. You got the open space, which was purchased in conjunction with Jefferson County. Jefferson County put a reverter clause on the deed and then issued a quitclaim deed to Westminster. For Westminster to be able to use that property for anything but open space or recreation, Jefferson County would have to remove that reverter clause. Obviously, we're going to go to Jefferson County and try to make sure that does not happen because we do not want to lose that open space. That open space is home to a big prairie dog colony, and on the prairie dogs feed eagles, raptors, owls. There's just all kinds of wildlife out there. Coyotes all over the place. I mean, it's just a unique area, and I don't think open space should be torn up and built on. I think open space is exactly what it says, open space, and it should stay open space. The lady that sold that 30 acres to Jefferson County, her name is Bonnie. I'm not sure what her last name is. Stewart, Bonnie Stewart. She sold that with the agreement that it was going to remain open space. And she is very upset right now that you're considering putting a water treatment facility there. The other site that you've narrowed it down to is a Hahn property, 103 acres. It's in the Church Ranch focus area. It's slated to have high-end hotels, retail, high-end homes, businesses. Your own comprehensive plan states that it's one of the last, the Hahn property, which is one of the city's last major opportunities to capture employment growth along the US 36 corridor. We don't believe that the city is even considering taking 40 acres of that 103 acres and putting a water treatment facility on it. We feel this decision's already been made. We just haven't been told yet. What we would like to do and what we would propose is that the city open back up the other 7 sites. We don't even know where they're at. I haven't been able to get an answer from the city on where the other 7 sites are. We would like to revisit the other 7 sites and work with the city to try and find a suitable location for a water treatment facility that we fully understand the city needs. We understand that. And we're not opposed to growth, but we are opposed to losing open space. So I thank you for your time. Thank you.
Do we have anyone else? Yes, sir. Come on down, please. And same, sir, since you're not signed up, would you give us your name and address?
My name is Bob Friedman. I live in unincorporated Jefferson County in the area around where the proposed water treatment plant is. They're at the Overland Trail open space, and I wanted to comment on that. I think we all really appreciate municipalities being proactive in creating parks, open space, and other public areas. And when we see a sign posted there, like Overland Trail, open space, or whatever, we think, gee, that's great. The city, the county, or whatever municipality has preserved that space forever. It influences us on why we want to live there, or maybe why we want to move there, and such like that. But in any case, once you post that sign, I think there's this perception, at least to myself, and I think most people in this room, gee, thanks, that's been preserved. Maybe it's going to see some improvements, like that particular open space really hasn't been improved, and it would be nice someday there's going to be a trail system or something that goes through there, but that's open space forever. And to simply try to take that away and put some public entity in there, which is, I understand we need the water treatment plant and such like that. I think it's just a little disingenuous on the part of that municipality that controls that space there. It's like you should have never posted the sign. You know, you should have just left it vacant. But now that you've deemed that open space, and it's been like that, and it's been clearly posted, please don't take that away. That's going to be a real tragedy for all the people that it affects. And thank you very much.
Okay, one last call. If you have not signed up and you want to speak, come on down, Mel. We'll get you right after this young lady. Go ahead. Again, if you did not sign up, I do need your names and address for the record.
Shelley Goges, 8015 West 106th Avenue, Westminster, Colorado. I am a Westminster resident, and I applaud the confidence that you had in our neighborhood to create the Overland Trail open space. We love that space. I've become an avid bird watcher as a result of that space. Many of the, owls and eagles and different bird species that visit there every day, I get to observe and watch. I've seen eagles out there, killing prairie dogs, and coyotes out there hooting and howling after their own kills. It's not that exciting to hear it at night, but I do hear it, and it is a reminder that we still live in Colorado. And we still, it's nice to, in the middle of Westminster, be able to appreciate open space and vistas and be able to see the mountains without development. It's part of being in Colorado is being able to appreciate where we live. And beyond that, I live adjacent to the open space. I received a letter notifying me of the proposed water treatment facility site location possibly being there. 8 neighbors did. We live in a community of over 100 people, 100 residences. We're the only 8 people that received these notifications. It seems a little not transparent to not notify people that live directly across the street from this open space that this could be a proposed site for a water treatment facility. It affects their property. It affects their vistas. It affects their appreciation of this open space that we all really enjoy. Secondly, the community working group. It was made up of community members and developers. I don't think I saw one person there as an advocate for open space. Someone who is dedicated to preserving and can speak to the benefits of creating these open spaces. Secondly, a comprehensive study was done. Survey. At the time I asked about this comprehensive survey, the comprehensive survey was of 116 people. There's 115,000. It's still conducting right now. It's been opened back up and people are still taking those surveys, but I'm hoping that it's more than 116 people at this point. That is not comprehensive. I was told by the city engineer that was a very comprehensive survey, and the consultant said that was, a great survey in terms of surveys being done by city on water. I don't agree with that. And that's really basically all I have to say, other than the fact that a city shouldn't be able to buy its way out of open space. When that open space is created, it should remain that way. And I'm urging you to look at that Hahn property and nestle that water treatment facility back in that development, and where it's not noticed, and where there's buffers for light and sound pollution that we don't have. And there's no expansion room in our neighborhood as well. So our 30 acres, you're going to have to buy 10 more acres from someone. Who's that going to be? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kathy Sloan, 10680 Dover Street. I use a Westminster mailing address, but it's unincorporated Jeffco. Thanks for being here tonight. Our property is directly to the west of the open space where you guys are planning to put the water treatment facility. I second absolutely everything that everybody has said up here so far. I particularly do not believe that the city is honestly considering putting the water treatment facility at the Hahn property with these final 2 properties. Again, there's no way the city is going to take 40 acres out of that could be revenue making with the commercial, retail, multi-use, and residential. I really think that at this point they're planning to put it in our backyard. And as Shelley just said, the plans say that they need 40 acres eventually, and that open space is 30 acres. And so I'm very concerned that the property where I live, my grandparents bought it in the late 50s. My grandpa built the 3-bedroom Rambler that my grandma still lives in. My sister and I moved back to Denver to help take care of my grandma. She's 85 now. And over the years, at some point or another, we've had 6 generations of our family live on that property. I plan to stay there when my grandma passes away. And it's just really sad to think that, you know, I'm in a place now where I really don't want to do any improvements on that property because I'm convinced that, you know, in the next, whether it's 10, 20, 50 years, eventually the city's going to need another 10 acres, which you already know about. And where's that going to come from? It's going to come from the adjacent property, which is our property, and a few other neighbors, including Shelley. I'm just pretty upset about the whole thing, about the process. As other people have said, the process does not seem like it was transparent at all until we get to the point where there's these final 2 sites. Again, I put 2 sites in air quotes because I really think it's just 1 site that we're down to at this point. We were raised riding horses. My grandpa always had horses. Everywhere around us where we used to ride horses growing up is now developed and gone, except for the open space behind us. We have a couple of llamas that protect our goats, our chickens, and our pigs, and our barn cats from the coyotes that are out there. It's a pretty unique little neighborhood in the middle of the city that has grown up around it. And I know that a lot of the neighbors feel the same way in terms of it being such a unique property and wanting to keep it that way, the rural feel that we have. And they've talked about, you know, kids being out in the street, playing in the open space, playing on the roads, and it being a pretty quiet road, with the exception of all the traffic that we have every once in a while from the Lao Buddhist temple when they have their big parties. They're directly across from us on Dover, and I think those happen about once a month. You know, not a huge deal since it's once a month, but it's a lot of traffic that road can't handle. And I know you guys are talking later tonight about the zone change in 108th and Dover, and again, concerned about the traffic there because we don't have sidewalks, you can barely have 2 cars pass each other on Dover, on 106th. 108th is already, you know, pretty busy with traffic going between old WADs and new WADs. So I think that, you know, there are a lot of concerns here that have been raised tonight that are all really valid. And I hope that you guys, as the boating community is saying, I hope you guys will, you know, consider all the comments that have been made tonight and, you know, really think about going back and revisiting some of this, some of these decisions that are being made. Thank you.
Okay, last call. Anybody that hasn't had a chance to testify that wants to come forward? All right. First of all, thank you all for coming again tonight. I'm sure we'll probably see some of you back here again, but you are always welcome. Thank you for the packet that you delivered to us tonight. Unfortunately, I have not had an opportunity to look at it while we've been sitting here trying to pay attention to what your comments are, but I will commit to, I believe every member of the council and the staff will read them. And we will defer to our staff to make sure that they take those items into consideration as they're working with this task force that's coming up. With that, I'll close the public comment and see if there are any reports from Mr. Tripp.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. To you, members of the council, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of the council, and everybody in the audience. On the 2 items that were discussed tonight, first of all, the Water 2025, the placement of a treatment facility. In a word, there are 2 sites. There's not 1 site. There are 2 sites being considered equally as we move forward. I want you to know that there's a meeting coming up. I think you're aware of it, but I'll give you the date. It's April 16th, 5:30 p.m. at Westview Recreation Center. There will be more information available from the folks who have been working on this project for some time, and I would invite you to look at that on the Westminster Water 2025 website, which provides a summary of answers to questions that people have, including answers to some of the questions that we've had tonight that may not be up there. Secondly, to the boating community, to those that are not in the boating community that have an interest in this, to our members of our council. First and foremost, as we've said, and I'll say again, we want to get boating back on the lake. We've got to be sure the water is safe. It's as simple as that, and we're working on that. Secondly, we have a responsibility, I believe, to the boaters because we created a lake with boating on it. We've removed it now for a reason that was beyond our control, and I think it was a responsible thing to do, but we have a responsibility to these folks to follow through that if we can find a solution to get them back on the lake. We have a responsibility to lake users that aren't boaters. They have feedback on this issue, and they are also concerned about water quality. We've heard from several of them in the last few weeks. We have responsibility to our water customers who we're also hearing from. Granted, hearing many more from boaters than the others, but the others have been represented. They've written emails to us, and they've indicated that haven't been comfortable coming to the microphone to speak about it. But I will tell you that they have made contact with us. Number 3, there were some additional questions raised tonight. We've answered every question that's come to us directly to the person who asked. We've also put the answers up on the website. We'll follow through with some additional things that come up tonight, and those answers will go up to the website. And fourth, probably most importantly to all of you, I was given before this evening's meeting some summary of the status of the task force, and here that is. The Park and Recreation Library Board is a board of citizens that's appointed by this city council to serve on such issues as review of the policies of the city related to the use of parks, recreation, and library open spaces. They have agreed to run this process. The chairman of that group will be the facilitator and the leader of the task force process, and so in so doing, they will select the task force. We will pass along to them the names that have been given to us. They're a group of folks like you. They're citizens. They represent various constituencies, all interested in parks, recreation, libraries, and open space. So this task has been given to them. We will staff that with professionals to provide them information. We will keep everybody apprised of the progress of their work. We'll ask them to work as expeditiously as possible, but as thoroughly as possible also. And council, as many of you have asked me, we'll keep you informed. As I've mentioned before, this is my decision and it's my responsibility, but rest assured, the 7 people sitting to my left have a great interest in this, and they are very attuned to it, and they're constantly and continuously, as they should be, on top of this matter, and I'm doing the best I can to keep them informed. So they have your best interest at heart, as, by the way, we do also. We care a lot about our community, or we wouldn't be in these positions, and we have highly professional people who are going to work really hard to find an answer. And by the way, thanks for a really good report here. I haven't had a chance to look at it thoroughly, but I think there's some great ideas, and there were great ideas expressed here this evening. That's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
I want to take one more group, and then we're going to take a bio break, which hopefully won't be too long. Members of council, do you have any comments from council at this time? Mr. DeMont.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Tripp. And thank you to the public who showed up tonight, and both tonight and at the meeting on Tuesday. I did show up to the meeting on Tuesday. I thought it was both well executed by our staff, as well as the boating community was out in full force. It was really quite amazing to see what was put together in such a short time for you to come out and advocate for something you obviously care very deeply about. I'm a native to Westminster. I grew up in countryside, so this really is important to me that we take every effort that we can to try to retain this. I have shared that with Don Tripp. Obviously, though, I agree with Mr. Tripp that water safety is the most paramount thing that we have to deal with. But I just want people to understand where I'm coming from, and I know that my colleagues, we all very much care about seeing this to its end and making sure that your input is taken and that we're looking at it and the staff's looking at it. One of the first things I did after the meeting was ask how we were going to hear back on the task force, and was pleased with Mr. Tripp's response that he's going to be keeping us full in the loop with what comes out of that task force. So I just wanted to take time again to thank all of you for being here and being part of the process.
So
thank you, Councilor DeMont. I too want to say thank you for coming tonight, and for many of you, this is your third night talking on this issue. Earlier today, I was actually in City Manager Tripp's office, and I made a comment that we have a really incredible community because when we have a call to action, people respond. And it sounds like you guys heard a call to action in this in this action and are really trying to look for a win-win solution. I heard many of you tonight talk about how you too share the desire to make sure Stanley Lake remains mussel-free and that you understand the impact of that and want to ensure that all generations of Westminster have safe, affordable, and reliable drinking water. And so I am comforted to know that we have so much common ground, that we're going to be, we'll be passive listening to this, but we will be kept informed. And I have to say, I have complete confidence in both the community and in the city staff to get to the best possible solution with that ultimate goal of making sure that we're fair and we're equitable and we're providing core services to residents. I also want to say to those who came to speak about the Water 2025 process, that's an ongoing process. Go to the community meetings. I do trust in the integrity of staff that these are two sites at this stage, but please keep your voices heard. It really does help inform better public policy when we hear from people. So thank you. We can't have a thriving local government without a thriving local community, and you all represent that so well. So thank you for coming tonight.
Ms. Scully.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I don't know that I can say anything any better or any differently than my peers have, but I appreciate everything you've both said. So thank you. But I also wanted to extend my thank you to everyone who came out tonight to voice your concerns and your thoughts on our boating on Stanley Lake and our water treatment centers. I too am under the impression and believe it is true that we have two sites. So please trust us, plus trust your city government. They are working very hard. They are listening to you, and we are listening to you. We try to respond to as many emails as we possibly can with all kinds of concerns. I wanted to emphasize, because I heard City Manager Tripp comment that one of our boards and commissions would be selecting our task force. And I just wanted to remind everyone, boards and commissions are open forum meetings. So that means anyone can show up and attend. We have an Inclusivity board meeting on Wednesday night, starting at 6 o'clock. Yeah, I think it's 6 o'clock. And I invite you to come, be present. That is how I got involved in the city and in city government. It's how most of us have become involved at this level. And so we welcome you. Please come, have voice. There is no better way to have a say in your world than to express your voice at a city council meeting or at any city event. I really believe in local government and its impact. It's why I ran. It's why I'm here, because I believe that we make the most impact and the most difference here. But it isn't us. It's all of us together. We are a community, and we're working to help each other. So keep up the fight. We're with you, and we're all listening, and we're trying to figure this out together. It's a hard issue, but we're all going to come to it together. And I think somebody said we're going to be leaders in the country on how to solve. I think it was Kathy Escobar. And I loved your speech, and I'm with you. I want us to be that leader. So we're going to work together. We will come to something that will work.
Ms. Mankey.
Yes, I just want to reiterate what my fellow councilors have said. I've been listening. I've been to the meeting at City Park, and I've been reading emails, and once again trying to answer as many as I can. And I really appreciate just the spirit of wanting to work together, the way you guys have come up with solutions, the work you've put into this. I mean, this is what makes Westminster such a wonderful city. The passion you have for our open space, for family, for the memories and experiences you make here, we really are listening, and I'm really, really hopeful that we can work with all of you and really come to some good solutions. So thank you again for coming and speaking, and thank you for all your comments and all your passion and love for the city. Thanks.
Ms. Haney.
And yes, I just want to say thank you as well, but especially for the education. Many of us don't have the background that many of you have, and it's a wonderful opportunity for us to hear your sides and be presented with information that we certainly can consider. So thank you all for the education that you're presenting us, and I look forward to working with you.
sure I didn't put my foot in my mouth, so I went to see an attorney. Just for a couple of things coming up. First, again, we've talked to you about being engaged, which you are, and continue that. For the folks over on the water treatment facility site, whether you're in the county or you're in the city, come to the meeting. Be a part of the discussion. It doesn't make any difference to me what zip code you're in. I don't care if you're in the city or not. We have a lot of people here tonight that are talking about voting issues that are not Westminster residents. We still want to hear you. So continue that process. Council, any other comments? Ms. Sight?
I apologize. This is actually more procedural. I wanted to ask the city clerk. I believe Ms. Sloan might have given some testimony that's for a public hearing later tonight, and I just didn't know how to incorporate that correctly into the record.
It will be in the record under citizen comment. She's welcome to speak again during the public hearing once the mayor calls that item up, if she so chooses.
And another party, if they wanted to counter or respond to her comments, would be able to, as long as they are here in the room right now. I think, isn't that the reason we try to have everything at the same time during a public hearing?
Yes, and anybody who wants to reference her comments, it will still be in the minutes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, other comments by council? If not, council, it's about 8:45. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a short break. And for right now, all the citizen comments and stuff other than for business items that we have left up, we are finished for the night. So thank you for coming.
Okay, you guys are ready?
All right, just real quick. So many people can't find it off. We're halfway through. No, and there's no full time. I apologize. It's a little squished up here, I must say. Yes, absolutely. So you're hooked in. Just test it forward. Yeah. You're good. You bet. I think they were brought in.
All right, everyone, if we could reconvene, please. Ms. Parker, if you put us back on the record, please. Approximately 8:51, and the council has returned to the dais. Just before we get into the business part of this, I will remind those of you in the audience, we do have one post-meeting item that the council will be doing at the conclusion of the business, and after that, we also have a new item that's been added. We have an executive session item to receive legal guidance on an item that we're discussing with the city attorney's office. Next item up on the agenda is the consent agenda. This is an item of routine matters that are acted on with a single motion, and both these items have been reviewed with the council. We have had discussion on those again at the pre-meeting today. No one has asked for any of the items to be removed at this time. Mr. DeMott, if you would.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the City Council adopt consent agenda items 8A through C.
Ms. Scully?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. At this time, I'd ask you to vote with the buttons on your lights. And the motion is carried on a 7-0 vote. Next item up is item 10A. This is Councilor's Bill number 17. I do have a short staff presentation coming up on this one. Patrick, if you would go ahead.
Hi, I'm Patrick Caldwell. I'm Senior Planner in the Planning Division. And this is first reading of Councilor's Bill number 17. It's regarding the annexation of property located at West 69th Avenue and Lowell Boulevard. And this is for a future parks facility. It's about 0.7 acres. The city purchased 5 lots 3 or 4 years ago, and at this time we're requesting annexation of those properties. I have a really brief presentation. This is the map that was attached. You can see the 5 lots that are lined top to bottom, and the 3 dash lots at the bottom are not in the city. The next slide shows the it's kind of context. The pink is land that is within the city, and the 5 lots plus the other 3 are not in the city. And then there's south of 69th Avenue. There's additional property that's not within the city limits. And this just shows an aerial showing the property. If you look really closely, there's a red dot, and the property that we're annexing is right near there. Little Dry Creek runs sort of horizontal across the property. Lowell Boulevard cuts across here, and you can see some construction activity in the center where the parks site will be. If you drive by, there's dirt there today. I included the SUV just so you could get a context of how large the parcel is. This is Creekside Drive that's already constructed at the south end of this parcel that's being annexed. And this is an aerial kind of a plan of the proposed park. Lowell Boulevard is to the very left, and you can see the park improvements. And at the very upper right corner of the slide, you can see Little Dry Creek. So this is what you will, what you're annexing the land for. And that concludes my presentation. So thank you.
Council, I'll open it up to questions once we have a motion, and have opened that up at this time. Do you have anything else right now, Mr. Collin?
I have nothing more.
All right, if you would, please stand by for a minute. Ms. Scully, would you like to help us start this by opening us up with a motion on this, please?
I would, Mr. Mayor. I move to pass Councilor's Bill number 17 on first reading, annexing city-owned, how do you say that? Contiguous property at West 69th Avenue and Lowell Boulevard, referred to as lots 1 through 5 of the North Mountain View subdivision in Adams County.
Mr. DeMott?
Second.
Okay, at this point, I will open it up to any discussions by council. And council, I would remind you that what you see on your screen is what's being referred to by the nature plate. And this is one that the Legacy Foundation brought you a check of about $200,000 months ago. This is a part of the build out of the entire park area down at the TOD station. I'm not sure. I'll pick on Jason here in a minute, but I do know that this has a project schedule, and we are hoping to get this open as soon as possible. But this is already being touted as a major attraction for the region because of all the partners who have helped invest in the TOD and this park site as well. So at this time, if there are any questions for our staff, I'll open it up to council at this time. If there are none, anything else you'd like to add, Pat? Okay. We have a motion and a second, and this is a roll call vote. Ms. Parker, if you let me get back to there, I'll be here.
Atchison.
Yes.
DeMott.
Yes.
Haney.
Yes.
Menke.
Yes.
Seitz.
Yes.
Scully.
Yes.
Vols.
Yes.
No words out. I'm sure I'm missing one. Okay, there we go. Okay. Motion carries on. Council's Bill number 17 passes on a 7-0 vote. Next item on your agenda is item B1. We will open up a public hearing or first reading on Council's Bill number 18 regarding the West 108th Avenue and Wadsworth Comp Plan Amendment. This time I'll turn it over to the staff.
Good evening, City Council. I'm Jacob Kaza, City Planner with the City of Westminster Planning Division. Tonight I'll be giving you a presentation on a comprehensive plan amendment for the southeast corner of West 108th Avenue and Wadsworth Parkway. The proposed comprehensive plan amendment is a consideration of the property owner's request to amend their comp plan designation for 7.82 acres of the 9.07 acre property at the southeast corner of West 108th Avenue and Wadsworth Parkway from retail, commercial to flex light industrial. At a future date, a preliminary development plan would be brought forward, and that date would be determined by the property owner. I'd like to make entries into the public record, this agenda memo and its attachments, and the notice published in the Westminster Window on March 28th, 2019. The property was posted with signs in 2 locations, and the property owner mailed a certification of the notice for this public hearing. The notice was mailed to 7 neighbors within 300 feet of the applicant's property. As a result of the public notices for the Planning Commission and City Council hearings, the city has been contacted by 8 individuals. 3 emails were received and have been provided to you. The city also received 4 phone calls and 1 in-person contact. 1 was confirming the location and size of the development, and 3 were curious about the change for this property and how it was connected to the other large changes coming to this area. Another was curious about the proposed amendment and what that decision would mean. The last individual voiced his support for the change. The developer held a public meeting at the Westminster City Park Recreation Center on January 23rd, 2019. The developer introduced their project, discussed the comprehensive plan amendment, and fielded questions. City staff attended to answer any questions and clarify any statements. Feedback provided by the attendees of the neighborhood meeting will be incorporated in the PDP and ODP. The location of this property is vacant land at the southeast corner of West 108th Avenue and Wadsworth Parkway. It is formerly known as KL Plaza Planned Unit Development. In this Google Earth image, you can see the vacant property located at the southeast corner of 108th Avenue and Wadsworth Parkway. To the north of the property is Olson Technological Park. West of the property, you can see the Walnut Grove Subdivision, Countryside Subdivision, and Walnut Creek Preserve Golf Course. The Rocky Mountain Metropolitan Airport is due northwest of the property. Notice the rural large lots to the east and west of the property. Here are 2 comprehensive maps for the property. The map on the left shows the current designation. The map on the right shows the proposed designation. The purple boundary line shows the city limits. The gray color on the map is flex light industrial, and the red color is retail commercial. Notice the northwest 1.25 acres of the property that the owner would like to retain the designation for retail commercial. Retail commercial hosts things such as banks, fast food, drive-thrus, convenience stores, grocery stores, things of that type. An example of this would be the Stanley Lake Marketplace Shopping Center at 100th Avenue and Wadsworth Parkway. Flex light industrial is typical for office users, warehouse users, and light manufacturing. An example of that is Olson Technological Park, which is directly north of this proposed amendment area. The Planning Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of the comprehensive plan amendment. Approximately 25 people attended the Planning Commission hearing. 12 individuals spoke at the hearing. Their concerns were primarily of the increased traffic that development would bring to their local street. Other concerns raised were of drainage in the existing abandoned home. The traffic and drainage will both be further examined during a future development submittal. In the comprehensive plan amendment application, the city analyzes traffic based off the current comprehensive plan designation compared to the proposed designation. The applicant submitted a traffic impact summary, which can be found on the last page of attachment 4. The proposed land use designation will generate less traffic than the existing designation for the property. Standards for approval of land use plan amendments are located in Westminster Municipal Code, Title 11, Chapter 5, Section 21. This proposed comprehensive plan amendment does require a legislative approval by the City Council. Staff believes that the land use plan amendment meets most of the criteria as addressed in the agenda memo. This conclusion is based on the criteria set forth in Section 11.521 of the Westminster Municipal Code, and that the public good is advanced by this request due to a support of a balance of commercial uses that provide employment, diversification of the commercial base to strengthen the city's economy from downturns in individual markets, and a reduction of the opportunity to dilute nearby existing retail uses. Staff believes this proposed amendment meets the following City Council goals: dynamic, diverse economy, beautiful, desirable, safe, and environmentally responsible city. Our recommendation is that you hold a public hearing and you approve the proposed comprehensive plan amendment for the subject property, a request to change the land use designation from retail commercial to flex light industrial for 7.82 acres of the 9-acre property. This recommendation is based on a finding the amendment meets the criteria set forth in Section 11.521 of the Westminster Municipal Code. And our applicant is here today, and he would also like to make a presentation and speak before the council.
Before we open it up to you guys, hang on. Council, does anyone have any questions of staff on the application presentation we have had so far? Okay. At this time, if the applicant has something they'd like to present, please come forward and identify yourselves and who you represent.
Hi, my name is Mark Delgado with DCB Construction. I represent Wyoming Pronghorn, the developer and owner of the property. I just wanted to thank you, Mayor, council members, and staff. Thank you for the presentation, Jacob. Not much to add to Jacob's presentation. Thank you. Except that the ownership group did engage a local brokerage firm to engage in market analysis and did in fact determine that the commercial retail use is just somewhat limiting in terms of the one of the key points of meeting the comp plan resolution is that diversity in employment types, and the existing retail commercial is somewhat limiting in the sort of geared more toward corporate businesses, which are great, but don't necessarily warrant that type of use in this particular area. So the idea of more research development, incubator, startup type, just startup type workspaces seem to be more what the market in this area was demanding. As well, 9 acres of retail, straight retail type development also is not what the market was warranting at this particular site. In addition, those particular uses would put a certain burden on traffic compared to what the flex industrial would warrant there. It's also worth noting the water and sewer demands would be from the city engineer standpoint, we've been told equal or less compared to the retail use, but our own analysis, which would, based on the potential users, would suggest with a pretty certain that the water and sewer demand would be less than the retail. So combined with sort of market analysis, traffic, and existing city infrastructure, we felt compelled that this proposed change to the comp plan was warranted, and it should hopefully yield a successful development. So thank you all.
Don't go away. Council, you have any questions of the applicant at this time? Ms. Light?
I have a quick question, and I apologize if I missed this in the report that we were given, but it appeared that the request shows there being still a slight amount of retail commercial in the northwest corner of the, I'm looking at this, I'm trying to see, is it, oh, it does say one-story retail. I need better glasses.
That's correct, yeah. There is intended, again, it's interestingly, while the retail use is restrictive in its own ways, the flex industrial is also restrictive in its own ways, and in order to create a more sort of diverse range of uses, we wanted to keep and preserve that corner as a retail component that could serve as an amenity to both the neighbors and the potential business users there. So, oh no problem.
Any other questions from council at this time before we let Mr. Delgado get ready for another one? All right, Mr. Delgado, I don't disagree with what you're saying about retail commercial in that particular place. In my opinion, that's a tough spot. What I will tell you is what we continuously hear from the Westmore Group, Ball Aerospace, Ball Corporation, and all the businesses along there, is the need for something in the restaurant area. Casual dining. Doesn't have to be a 5,000, 10,000 square foot restaurant. But what they're looking for is the opportunity. So if this is something you're considering for the one-story unit, there's a very big market just to the west of you, about a half a mile. And they are looking for something. Right now, the only restaurant out there happens to be ours. And we don't mind the competition, but some diversity would be great. And not only has the commercial world out there, but the resident as well. It's drive up to 120th and Broomfield, or you go down to past 100th, because there's not a lot of restaurants at 100th. But you get down into 88th and 92nd before you really get into restaurants. So people are looking for convenience. If you should consider that, check with your neighborhood, look with your consultants you're looking at. I think you might find an open market there. But I know this is one thing Mr. Tripp and I have met with a number of the larger corporations out there, and this is the kind of feedback they get from their employees on a regular basis. Most of them have had to result to having on-site cafeterias because of lack of something in the short term that people can drive to and get back within, say, an hour and 15 minutes for their lunch breaks or meals. So, something for you to consider. Any other questions or comments of Mr. Delgado? Thank you, sir. Staff, you have any final recommendations?
No.
All right, so the recommendation from the Planning Commission and staff is right now for an approval of the land use change. We have a motion and a second. I'm sorry.
Mayor.
Go ahead. I've almost got to go ahead.
The public hearing.
Yep, I know. That's where I said I was almost going there. So at this point, I know we didn't let them go very far, so if there's any member of the public that has any comments in regards to this application, either for or against, please come down to the microphone. Ma'am, since we are in a different hearing, we'll ask you your name and address.
Kathy Sloan, 10680 Dover Street. It looks like from the picture the in and out is going to be up on 108th versus Dover. I think that light industrial is going to be a lot like the Olson Technology Center that's on the north side of 108th. And when you get on the north side of 108th, the street is much bigger. There are sidewalks, gutters, all that stuff. And so I'm just curious, you know, depending on what they're planning to do, if that sort of street infrastructure is planned out for Dover. And if so, if that needed to be widened and sidewalks and everything else, you know, would that mean that that would cut into our property that's right along there? So those were my only questions and comments. Thank you.
We'll go away and we'll try to get you an answer. Mr. Delgado, can you respond to that at all? Come on up. No, up on the microphone, please.
So while we're still at the kind of the land planning stage, we haven't got into the actual development stage. We have actually met with and engage city engineers with respects to Dover Street. And basically, it's been determined that there would be no burden on the adjacent properties, and we would work with the traffic engineers and the public works to identify the city's requirements for street improvements at the, it's my understanding, working with Jacob at the PDP and ODP stage of the project. So it's anticipated we will meet all those requirements that may be required by the city in that respect.
Go ahead.
I heard two things. I heard it's not going to affect Dover, and that you're going to meet with the city to find out what the requirements are and meet the requirements.
There are certain streetscape requirements that would be required on Dover, but as part of our application, that would come in the next phase. So any type of sidewalk requirement would be addressed in that next phase of development. In meeting with the city, we've acknowledged that there is going to be a sidewalk and a little bit of dedication on Dover, but again, that's at this point until we have our formal pre-app on the actual development of the project, it's speculative. So,
does that answer your question, Ms. Long?
Yes, thank you.
One of the things I would point out is that Dover Street is that public safety access to the plants. We have to have more than one for fire protection to get in case the one on 108th were to become out of service. We would have to have a second exit. So that Dover Street looks to me, based on my background, is that would be an emergency exit as well for people having to get in or get out of there if the other one became blocked. So again, as Mr. Duggar said, it's very early in the planning stage, so those things are still to be decided by the planning department and the city's fire and police department. They'll all have insight for this as we go forward. Other questions or comments from anyone in the public? Okay, hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. And at this time, I will open up Council's Bill number 18 for first reading. There we go. Mr. DeMott. We already read it. No, we got to read it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to pass Councilor Bill number 18 on first reading to approve the comprehensive plan amendment for the subject property located at the southeast corner of West 108th Avenue and Wadsworth Parkway to change the land use designation from retail commercial to flex light industrial based on the finding that the amendment is generally supported by the criteria set forth in section 11-5-21 of the Westminster Municipal Code.
Ms. Sight?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any comments or questions from council? Hearing none, this is a roll call vote. Ms. Parker?
DeMott.
Yes.
Haney.
Yes.
Menke.
Yes.
Seitz.
Yes.
Scully.
Yes.
Vols.
Yes.
Atchison.
Yes. I'm looking for one more light. Never mind, we found it. Motion passes on a 7-0 vote. Next item on the agenda is item 10C. This is Council's Bill number 19.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to pass Councilor Bill number 19 on first reading, authorizing the city manager to execute and implement an economic development agreement with Synchronous Inc. that would include 50% rebates of permit fees, use taxes on construction materials and sales, and use taxes on upfront expenditures on furniture, fixtures, and equipment up to a maximum of $23,924.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on Council's Bill number 19? Ms. Haney?
I'm sorry.
Okay. Mr. Vols, did you have a comment?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Just ready to vote. Sorry.
Okay. Nice to see everybody jumping in there tonight. This is a roll call vote, Ms. Parker.
Councilor Haney.
Oh, yes.
Menke.
The last time.
Yes.
Seitz.
Yes.
Scully.
Yes.
Vols.
Yes.
Atchison.
Yes.
DeMott.
Yes.
All right. Motion carries on a 7-0 vote. Next item on your agenda is a recommendation by the city manager for an expansion of the contract with Pure LLC. Ms. Menke. You get it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move, based on the recommendation of the city manager, to find that the public interest will be best served by approving an amendment to the negotiated contract with Pear LLC to provide office area furniture, including design and installation services, in the amount of $750,000, increasing the total authorized expenditure amount with this contractor from the original contract amount of $500,000 to $1,250,000, subject to annual appropriations starting April 15th, 2019 through December 31st, 2020.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion or questions by council? Hearing none, there's the vote with your buttons, please. And this motion also carries on a 7-0 vote. Next item on the agenda is a recommendation for council to consider removing Council's Bill number 13 from the table for consideration. Ms. Thanks.
Thank you. I move to remove Councilor's Bill number 13 from the table for consideration.
Ms. Scully.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? If not, this is a voice vote. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion is carried. Therefore, the next item on the agenda will be Councilor's Bill number 13 on first reading. Ms. Thanks, go ahead.
Thank you. I move to pass Councilor's Bill number 13 on first reading, amending Section 8-7-24 of the Westminster Municipal Code relating to water shortage or drought emergency plans and procedures, specifically to include Sections D and E, which I shall read now. Should the city manager declare a drought or water shortage emergency pursuant to the drought management plan, the city manager shall, as soon as practicable, inform the city council of the declaration and provide supporting information. The city manager shall thereafter such periodic updates as the city council sees fit and appropriate. This Section E. The city council may at any time override and reverse the city manager's declaration of a drought or water shortage emergency by resolution.
Ms. Scully.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on Council's Bill number 13? Mr. DeMont.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to put on the record why I won't be supporting this tonight, and we'll have to vote no. So some of the changes that are in here are to, prior to this, the city council would basically ratify a decision by the city manager that would last for 11 days if he put us in a drought position. This takes that out, and part of that, just so everybody understands, is that we're going to at some point look at adopting a drought management plan, which I'm glad that the city's looking at that. However, I think that I would have preferred, and I tried to get my colleagues to go along with this, but they've decided on this, that we kept the process the way it was, use the drought management plan, and still use city council to basically say, we're in this position in the drought management plan. So for that reason, I'm going to be voting no, but I wanted to make sure on the record why I was voting no on this.
Other comments from council? Ms. Sykes?
So I appreciate Councilor DeMont's desire to make sure that council has their full agency when making policy decisions. However, I feel like the change that we're making allows that good data is driven to make a decision on something that is so fundamental to quality of life and core services to our residents. And so while it is a departure, it still allows for the imprint of the public through the city council, but it would have to be an extraordinary step for us to act against this recommendation because it would be an emergent situation. Just for a point of notice, we have not been ever in a drought situation in the city's history. And in fact, even in 2002, when we were in a drought as a state, the criteria is incredibly strict and appropriate. I do not believe just the water volume alone in Stanley Lake on its own would have qualified at that time. So if we're in a situation where the city manager is exercising this right, it is a very extreme case. That is why I feel comfortable that, and with us still having the ability for the council to act in the behalf of the public if necessary.
Other comments, Mr. DeMont?
Yes, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Seitz, I appreciate your comments, and I totally understand where you're coming from. I think just to further explain my position, it goes back to kind of what we heard earlier on some other issues. I have full faith in our city manager's position and why we hire that position. But we're also an elected body where we have 7 minds, where we look at an issue individually. And I like that about the old way, and that's part of the reason. And I kind of left that out, and you jogged my memory as I listened to your reasoning. So although I totally understand the reasoning, and again, I appreciate the fact that we're going to have the drought management plan, and I think that's a step forward in protecting our water supply, I still would have preferred that city council's imprint and beyond that in the front end, instead of having to go back if we decide we disagree with Mr. Tripp or whoever the city manager is on the back end.
Other comments by council? Ms. Scully?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I too will be voting in favor of this reading or this bill tonight. And honestly, we were always on the back end because we were ratifying the decision of the city manager up to 11 days after the city manager had made the decision. What we're doing now is saying that rather than ratifying it, we're going to have the power to reverse it. So we would just simply step in and say we don't agree, and we would reverse it. And we don't have a time limit. We can do it whenever we want to. So I think actually we've gained some expression here without taking too much time or getting too much into the weeds. We're trusting the science. We're working with the science. And we are the ones setting the drought policy. And I think that's really important that it's noticed that the city council has already set that policy in place and held the city to follow that policy.
Other comments by council? I think one of the things that we have to figure out too is that we hire staff to make decisions on our behalf because they have the technical expertise. And as it's been mentioned by several other council members already, we have a drought management plan coming before us later this month. That plan is what sets out the actions that follow. The city manager is charged in his role as an operational manager to enforce that process along with the recommendations from staff. We are trying to instill upon them, you need to make the right decision based upon the science, based on what we have here, and the conditions around us. We don't need to be making that operational day-to-day decision. That is not our role. But at the same time, we still hold control over the city manager every year as he controls the people who work for him. So it's never going to be a piece where we don't have a control point in this. City manager works for us as the council. Anytime we don't agree with that, we have the options to deal with that through his contract. But at this point, we have to have somebody making these decisions, breaking them forward, and operating the city. Therefore, I think it's up to us to make sure that we enforce that. And the next thing that's going to help put that in place will be the drought management plan that we bring forward. Are there any other comments by council? Not Ms. Parker, this is also a roll call vote.
Mankey.
Yes.
Sites.
Yes.
Scully.
Yes.
Bowles.
Yes.
Atchison.
Yes.
DeMott.
Nope.
Haney.
Yes.
And I still need one more vote, guys. There we go. All right. Motion carries on a 6-1 vote. All right, ladies and gentlemen, for the time being, that is all the business that we are going to be conducting tonight. As I indicated previously, we have one presentation that we'll be hearing that is open to the public to listen in on. And then after that, we have one executive session. So council, take a short 3 or 4 minutes and let's try to go in it. Otherwise, we will also be needing to make an extension of time since we're only an hour away from running out of time tonight. We'll do that in the other room.